did something a little different this morning, and in fact, I think I'm taking a different approach this week to Dragon Balloon. I did hit the midpoint last week, right? And, you know, I talked about how I'm having all the doubts now about this story, but something else really interesting has happened. I've mentioned before that there's a sort of larger B story here with a separate character. It's like a story within a story kind of situation, and that's like where all the fantasy stuff is really coming from. And over the last couple of weeks of working on this draft, that a lot of things about that B story has changed. Namely, the main character of that story, Etta, it was a story about, to be really vague about it, she was part of an acting troupe that had a sort of secret mission, and that has turned into she is part of a secret all-lady fight club that uses illegal magic. And you know that thing where you get halfway through a draft and all of a sudden you get a shiny new idea and you can't tell if you actually really want to write this idea instead, or if it's just your brain trying to procrastinate and like pull you away from finishing the story that you are actually writing? I think it's kind of a little bit of both, because now I just want to write the illegal magic fight club idea. But it is part of this story. It is part of this book. And I guess I just kind of realized that here at the midpoint, this is where these two stories start to kind of bleed into one another. And if I'm gonna keep writing Logan's story, I have got to get a better grasp on what is going on in this B story, because I've really been like pushing it to the side. So I am taking this week away from my draft. I am not writing a single word on that draft, and I'm gonna try to focus on developing my idea for this story, the B story, because it really is super important in how it plays a role in the rest of Logan's story as well. And so this morning, that's what I did. I just opened a new document, a brainstorming only document. I did dictation, because you guys know I'm a little bit addicted to that right now. And I just sat here and got about 3,000 words of me just rambling, 45 minutes of rambling as I tried to think through all of these changes I'm making, because it's not just about the Fight Club thing. It's about the magic system itself and the backstory, which is getting a little bit more extensive, but that's good because I needed to deepen it more. It was a little bit shallow and unformed, and I'm getting there, but I still have a lot of work to do if I'm gonna get a grip on what this book, this side story, is actually about, because it really is going to inform what the entire book is actually about. So that's gonna be this week. I'm just going to be focusing on developing Etta's story and kind of like taking advantage of the fact that I can actually kind of pause on Logan's book right now and play with what feels like a fun, shiny new idea, but it's not really procrastinating because it actually does belong in this book, and that's never happened to me before. It's kind of cool. It's kind of refreshing to be taking a break. So once I get this a little more thought out and I feel like I have a better grip on the backstory, I think I'm going to take down my I still have my original beat sheet up on my whiteboard for Dragon Balloon back in December, and I'm going to take those post-it downs and see if I can make a new beat sheet specifically for Etta's story and get it all lined up so that the scenes I'm writing for her make a little more sense. I've been trying to do an Etta scene in between every Logan scenes, but the Etta scenes are like super, super short, and I'm hoping this is going to help me develop them a little bit more. By the way, why was I wondering how this book is already 50,000 words? Like, it's 50,000 words because it's two stories. There's like two stories happening parallel to each other. That's why, Michelle. But that's what I'm going to be doing this week. So today I'm just going to do a little bit more dictation. Hopefully tomorrow morning I will start on that beat sheet, and yeah, let's just see how this plays out over the next few days. Oh, what am I going to work on? That's such a good question. So last week I hit the midpoint of my draft, and I kind of realized I need to take a pause and work out some world building stuff. Like, I was letting myself do that thing where I wasn't setting anything too hard in stone yet because I wanted to give myself room to explore, but now I'm at a point where I need to start locking things down. If I don't, you know what I mean? So I'm taking this week to like not draft, but like just brainstorm and just kind of solidify world building things. That's what I'm working on. The urge to procrastinate is just hard today, but I have been trying to push through these writing sprints. We're doing them on Lisa's channel today, and I'm making some progress. I think one of the hardest things about this stage, brainstorming or like re-brainstorming when you pause in the middle of a book to kind of take stock and solidify things, is that when you're not measuring by word count, it's really hard, for me at least, to gauge my progress. Has this been a productive morning? Was yesterday productive? I wrote 3,000 words of brainstormy stuff, and I filled up my Blackboard with ideas, specific things about the world, and I'm working on my magic system right now, and I think I have a better grasp on it, but there's still, I feel like it's still just a little too loose. And while I am all about keeping things loose in a first draft, there is a point where, especially going through the second half of a story, where I don't want to get myself into a situation where I have to completely ground up, scrap and rewrite the second half of this book because I don't have things figured out yet. It's really hard to find that line, and it's different for every book, which I guess is part of the problem. But yeah, I need to understand this magic system better. And for this book in particular, it's important because the midpoint, the halfway point, is where the fantasy B story and the Logan's main story start to like bleed into one another. So yeah, I gotta figure this out. Something I've been doing is I found a science fiction and fantasy world building course on Skillshare by the teacher's name is Lincoln Michelle. Shoot, I should know how to say that, shouldn't I? And I just started it. I'm only on the fourth part of the lesson. The first one, aside from the introduction, he talked about the ripple effect. You know, like so many sci-fi fantasy stories start with a what if question. What if this happened to a world, or what if this existed? And you study the ripple effect. How would it affect entertainment? How would it affect politics? How would it affect, the way people live in this world? And I've been trying to play with that because I have answered some of those questions, but I think I need to do a little bit more digging and figure that out. He gets into some interesting stuff later in this course, so I'm excited to watch it. And I don't know, I'm hoping, just sometimes listening to other writers talk about this stuff, or just taking a course like this, will help loosen stuff and help me get a better grasp on what I'm doing, have little epiphanies. You know how it goes. Speaking of, real quick, I actually want to thank you guys because I got an email a couple days ago telling me that my class is being featured on Skillshare's creativity browse page, which is a big deal because only the top 1% of classes on the whole platform are ever selected for those slots. And I know the reason they selected it has a lot to do with you guys who jumped in right away and watched it and left positive feedback, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. That's awesome. I am definitely planning another course for June. More about that soon, but to everybody who took that course, thank you. I really appreciate it. So anyway, all right, we've got one more sprint to go, and this is going to be all I'm going to work on this morning. Again, hard for me to tell how much progress I've made, but I think I'm beginning to grasp this world a little bit better. I've got some work for a client to do in the afternoon, so I will check back in tomorrow, Thursday morning, one more time to let you guys know how this is going, and I'm really hoping that next Monday I'm gonna be ready to jump back into this draft. So it is not Thursday morning, it is solidly afternoon. I have not done any work on developing my world building. A big part of this is just I had one of those nights where I woke up at 2:30 and my brain started doing things and wouldn't let me go back to sleep. And I think I finally drifted off sometime. I mean, the sun was definitely up. I think it was after 6. And then at like 8 or 8:30, our building's fire alarm just randomly went off and I was ripped from my sleep. And so I'm just feeling a little bit strung out today. There's been a lot of coffee and a whole lot of pretty much not much else. I do think between all the work I did on my whiteboard and the brainstorming I did using dictation, I feel like I do have a little bit of a better grasp on what is going on in this fantasy world. I still definitely have some more work to do on it. I started when I was taking that course on Skillshare yesterday, which is really good, by the way. It helped me think of, it gave me a couple of little aha moments. I did identify some things I was trying to kind of, I didn't even realize it, but force into that fantasy story, into the world that I wasn't actually all that excited about. I just felt like it had to be in there because it was fantasy. And, you know, if it doesn't interest me, I'm not going to put it in there. So there was some stuff that I realized I needed to scrap, and I'm trying to like kind of think of it from a fresh bird's eye perspective. Like, okay, forget everything you've done so far because you can change any of it. What excites you the most about this world? What's most interesting? And starting at that core point of what if this is a world where blank, and like working out from there has taken things in a different direction, and it's really interesting. And I'm gonna keep playing with it. I'm gonna finish that course today and maybe do a little bit more work on it this afternoon. I'm still hoping that by next week I will be ready to jump back into this draft, because I know that taking a little break and doing this work is necessary and good, but there's gonna be a line, and at some point I will use this to stop writing my draft or to resist going back to my draft. And I'm gonna have to just get back in it and finish the thing and accept the fact that it's not going to be perfect, obviously. I'm gonna have to do that. And I don't wanna wait too long. I think a week off is enough for me personally. And all of this just had me thinking, like, it's so hard to figure out how we define success as writers. I mean, like, what are accomplishments or achievements that we celebrate? Like finishing a first draft, that's a concrete one, and finishing a revision. But honestly, when I step back and look at it, other than that, I have like done a really poor job of this in the past, both on like a large scale career goal kind of way, and also on a daily small scale way. And what I mean is, I'm really starting to realize more and more lately that I spent so much of the last decade of building this career as an author with no definition of what success would look like in my mind. And therefore I always felt like I was waiting for something to happen, but I never really knew what that was, or like I was running towards a finish line, but I didn't know where the finish line was. And I mean, I think all of us, it's fine to admit that, especially in the earlier stages of writing books and wanting to be published, we have dreams of, you know, bestseller, award winner, da-da-da. Like, it's great to have those dreams. We should all dream big. And I had those dreams. And I do think, looking back, I genuinely think I did a good job of keeping them in check, because I can't think of a single book that I ever had come out where I thought there was even a sliver of a chance that it would say hit a bestseller list or anything like that. Like in the beginning, I just knew, oh, odds are low. And then the more I learned about the industry, the more I grew to recognize the signs of, oh, you know, the publisher is going to make this a bestseller versus it's not. And in my case, it was obviously always it's not. That's the case for most of us, right? So I do think I've kept my expectations in check as far as that goes. But I didn't have a definition of success. And I had this kind of oh, it's Eeyore time. Hi. And I had this realization, I don't know, sometime in the last week, where I thought, you know what? If 5 years ago, if I could see where I am right now, earning a living off of making fiction, flat out, that would be a massive success to me 5 years ago, and especially 10 years ago. And I'm not appreciating that enough. Like, in some ways, in a lot of ways, I am successful. Okay, this licking is really Rosa. And I think it's important that we all, like, not just have realistic goals and also big dreams, and it's hard to manage those two things at once, but just, like, spell out some clear definitions for yourself, like what you will consider to be successful for you as a writer. So 5 years ago, wherever you were in your journey of wanting to write books, what would that 5 years ago you think of where you are right now? Have you managed to finish a draft where you hadn't finished a draft before? Then that's huge. You are successful. Have you managed to sign with a literary agent when 5 years ago you weren't close to that? That's obviously hugely successful. Can you see massive improvement in your writing, in your prose? Then that's a huge success. You are successful, you know? And I've been trying to figure out a way to define this on a more daily basis or weekly basis with my work. Like, for example, when I take a week to develop my world building, that's so vague. It is hard for me to figure out a way to, like, kind of quantify whether or not I am being successful or having success right now, because it's just, I think this is why I and so many of us go back to word counts, because with word counts, it's a quantifiable thing. I wrote 2,000 words today, and that was my goal. Therefore, today equals success. But with so many other important parts of this writing a book process, like everything that isn't actually writing the draft, it's just so hard. And I think that's why we always feel like we're kind of slightly drowning or struggling to catch up and get on top of something, but we don't know where the top is. Anyway, I just think that's something maybe it's helpful for me and maybe for you to think about on a small scale and on a larger scale basis, so that we don't fall into the trap of feeling like we're constantly chasing something that we can't see because we never actually defined what it is, and therefore it's impossible for us to ever catch it. These are the thoughts that one has when one does not get enough sleep. So anyway, one thing that I did do this week that I haven't done since, I don't want to say since I was a kid, but honestly, I can't remember the last time I did this, is I just went to my library and I wandered the shelves, the fiction shelves, and picked out 3 random books I had not heard anything about and checked them out, and I'm going to read them. And I don't know, I know nothing about these books. I don't know anything about the authors, except I did realize one of them, The Extraordinaries. I didn't recognize the name TJ Klune when I picked it up at all, but when I was waiting to check out, I flipped to his bio in the back and realized, oh, he's the guy that wrote The House in the Cerulean Sea, which I did read not too long ago and very much enjoyed, so that made me even more excited about this one. I picked up The Alchemists of Loom because it sounds like a nice steampunkish fantasy, and I just feel like reading some other worlds right now and hoping to get inspired. And I also picked up The Library of Fates. Again, same reason, different fantasy, different world. I just thought maybe the world building in these would inspire me. That's what I'm hoping anyway, and I'm looking forward to reading them. If you have read any of these books, no spoilers, but tell me what you thought in the comments. One other thing before I go, and this is gonna seem like kind of a sharp turn, but Jess Owens shared a video from another booktuber. Her name is Lou. I can't remember the exact channel name, but I'm gonna link to the video over here. And she shared it on her community tab, and I watched the video, and I'm so glad I did. Lou basically asked the question, if you are making it a mission to read diversely, why? And what does that mean? And what do you expect that to lead to? And I watched the video yesterday morning, and it's been on my mind ever since, and really has me doing a lot of thinking. And I just wanted to pass it on and share it because I think it's an important message, and she asks some very valid questions. And, you know, I've talked in the past in some of my vlogs about how much, you know, the news can affect me, as it can for all of us, obviously. And just trying to find a way to manage that while still being, you know, an active and contributing member to society, and to help society progress, and to recognize when communities are suffering, etc. You know, it's important to me, and there are a lot of things going on right now, as always. And I'm going to continue to think about how I'm gonna go forward after watching Lou's video. But for right now, if you check the comments below, I'm going to pin a comment with some links I have found this week to make donations to certain causes, or other ways that you can help with certain causes if you wish and you don't have any money to donate. Then I will link all of that in the comments below if you want to check it out. And I'll have more to say about this later, but for right now, I just recommend watching this video next. And that's gonna be it for me. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week with another one. Bye.